Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I will call this Bloomington City Council meeting to order on Monday, May 24th, 2021. Thank you all for joining us. Start our meeting, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would, please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, welcome. Thanks for joining us. To all the members of the public who are tuning in this evening. Thanks to our council for being here, our staff as well. Ms. Christensen, if you could please call the roll call of the staff, or of the council, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Beloga.
Present.
Councilmember Carter.
Present.
Councilmember Coulter.
Present.
Councilmember Lohman.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson.
Here.
Mayor Bussey.
Here. All 7 members of the Bloomington City Council are in attendance this evening. Item 3 on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. A couple of things I wanted to point out to folks who might be tuning in to watch. Once we get to our hearings, resolutions, and ordinances, we do have public hearings on items 7.1 and 2. We have a public comment time that we're going to make available on item 7.3. Item 7.4 is not a public hearing, but 7.5 will be a public hearing. And then as we go into our organizational business, as we get past our city council policy and issue update, we'll go to item 8.3, which is a resolution to go into closed session to discuss labor relations strategy. And we do have that option to go into closed session for items such as labor relations strategy, and will be doing that. We will go into closed session. We will come back into open session simply to adjourn, but when we come back into open session, we will not have any discussion. There won't be anything decided and so on. So as we get to item 8.3, the public information, there won't be any additional interaction or announcements for the public on our agenda or anything we've got going on. Council, anything to add or any clarifications for the agenda for this evening? Hearing none, I would move approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second? I have a motion. We got a second by Councilmember Martin. So thank you for that second, Councilmember Martin. We have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We've got an agenda. Item 4 on our agenda is the public comment period, which is a 20-minute period at each council meeting where members of the public may bring forward items to the council that are not on tonight's agenda. The first part of our public comment period is item 4.1, a response to the prior meeting's public comments. Mr. Verbrugge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Good evening. At last week's meeting, Mr. Cliff Carlson had asked about Creekside and what the plan was for reopening Creekside and the programs that would be offered. The mayor had indicated in response to his question last Monday that we would have a full report coming, and I just wanted to update both Mr. Carlson, our viewers, and the council that Jill Murphy, our Creekside manager, will be providing that full report at the June 7th council meeting under introductory right away at the beginning. So we'll have the full details of what programs will be available when Creekside reopens. And again, we're striving to do that at the beginning of July. Other commenters last week had comments that didn't require follow-up this week, so no additional response to public comment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Verbrugge. Council, any questions of Mr. Verbrugge on that? If not, we'll move on to item 4.2, which is the public comment period itself. As I said, it's a 20-minute period that we hold at each council meeting, allowing for up to 5 minutes per caller to discuss items not on tonight's agenda. As I said, it is a 5-minute limit per caller, just to make sure that everything is fair and equitable for everybody who calls in. It's not necessarily for a back and forth or problem solving or discussion. We will answer questions of easy fact, but we will not get into a back and forth. We'll instead rely on a reply by Mr. Verbrugge at the next meeting to any questions or issues that are brought up at the public comment period. So with that, I would like to open tonight's public comment period. Ms. Wilson, do we have any callers looking to speak at tonight's public comment period?
Leah, this is Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any callers wishing to speak on agenda item 4.2, the public comment period?
All right, anyone who wants to speak on that agenda, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. And we have Daniela Conco who wants to speak. Ma'am, your line is open.
Thank you. Hi, I'm speaking on behalf of BARC, which is the Bloomington Anti-Racist Coalition, and we wanted to respond to the mayor's council minute. We don't think you actually understand the concerns regarding the city flying the thin blue line flag. You can't be neutral on a moving train. Political platitudes and attempting to play off both sides is not the appropriate response to community members showing concern to the city-sanctioned flying of a flag that represents oppression. Therefore, BARC has decided it necessary to respond point by point to your May 19th council minute. First, how dare you compare flying the pride flag to flying the thin blue line flag? These two symbols are not comparable because unlike the pride flag, which celebrates the humanity of historically marginalized identity, the thin blue line flag celebrates violence, white supremacy, and racism. People can choose to be police officers, but people cannot choose to be queer. Queer people have not been surveilled, or queer people have been surveilled and have not surveyed and beat people for their sexuality. Police have. As you said, I know many people see this thin blue line flag as a racist, divisive, and openly hostile symbol to members of our BIPOC communities. If your constituents are telling you and the council that this flag is racist, offensive, and openly hostile, why did you and the council even consider flying it? That should be enough of a reason to not fly the flag. But clearly being anti-racist is not a priority for you or the council. You also said, I want to be absolutely clear, I firmly believe that the Bloomington Police Department made the request to fly the flag in an honorable and solemn and respectful manner. I don't believe for 1 second that there was a racist or threatening or insulting intent. While it may be tempting for you to trust the people you brush shoulders with in the city government building, many of the residents in the city clearly do not believe what you do. Perhaps it might be helpful to go back a bit in time to Brooklyn Center when Daunte Wright was killed. When protests erupted outside the police station, the Brooklyn Center police decided it was appropriate to fly the thin blue line flag. If you recall, this was met with widespread disgust, and it was clear once again that this flag was merely a reaction to the cause of Black liberation, and the police view themselves as separate from us civilians. Yet here in Bloomington, with a police department responsible for the murder of Isaac Aiden during a time of high police community tensions, it is somehow concluded that flying the same thin blue line flag is appropriate. Of course, it may have seemed appropriate to a white mayor of a majority white suburb where residents of color have been profoundly disturbed by this display of solidarity with the same forces that oppress them, their families, and their friends. He also said the white supremacists who marched at Charlottesville and shouted disgusting anti-Semitic chants, they carried the thin blue line flag and essentially hijacked its original meaning. We don't have to give up that symbol that flag as a powerful symbol. But regardless of its supposed intent, police departments are historically and currently white supremacist institutions of the state, tasked with enforcing the capitalist and the white supremacist system in America, the system that tears down unhoused encampments, maces indigenous water protectors, and guns down Black people in the streets. Even the term the flag is based on, the thin blue line, was coined by an infamously racist Los Angeles Police Department chief. Regardless if the flag today is seen as a response to Black Lives Matter, its increased popularity is out of the opposition to the Black Lives Matter movement. Therefore, when you fly the flag, Black, brown, and indigenous people see an honoring of the white supremacist institution that has dealt violence to them and or their family and friends. Members of your own community were involved in the Minneapolis uprising and personally faced disproportionate violence at the hands of police officers, and yet this flag is flying. Symbols matter and they have power, much in the same way that having a holiday devoted to Christopher Columbus is an attempt to honor Italian Americans. It's still a commemoration of white supremacy and the violence that Christopher Columbus inflicted on the indigenous communities here. So is flying this flag. You also said white supremacists and racists and seditionists also frequently wrap themselves in the United States flag. Those flags carry deep and important historical significance in this country. We don't have to give those flags up as positive historical symbols. We have the power to stop that. We can say no. White supremacists and racists wrapping themselves with the American flag is nothing new. The U.S. was founded by white colonizers who stole land and murdered indigenous nations, all while enslaving Africans to turn a profit. Throughout the first 89 years of American history, enslaved Africans worked while the U.S. flag was flying. When black people were being lynched, the U.S. flag was flying. When the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed, the U.S. flag was flying. When Japanese American citizens were placed in internment camps, the U.S. flag was flying. The internment camps themselves even had the flag flying. Of course, the U.S. flag is a positive symbol for white settlers, those who benefited from the colonial violence and racial oppression in the United States. But for the indigenous nations nearly destroyed, for black people who have ancestors that were enslaved, this flag is not a positive symbol. It is a reminder of who committed these atrocities, and it continues to maintain the same systems of oppression that brutalize and kill us to this day. We cannot distance our flag or our nation from its white supremacist history that it has yet to fully acknowledge nor make amends for. Furthermore, it is incredibly tone-deaf and ignorant to think that we can just...
I'm sorry, your 5 minutes are up, but I appreciate your call and I appreciate your comments. Thank you much.
Leanne, do we have additional callers for the public comment period? Agenda item 4.2.
Yes, ma'am. We do have Andrew Saul. Sir, your line is open.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Just a response to the last caller. The city with the flags. I don't think the thin blue line is oppressive, but I would like the city to maybe strongly look at a policy, possibly just to fly the city flag, the state flag, and the United States flag, and then maybe people's feelings won't get hurt over a simple flag. So maybe get back to the basics, and then there'd be less controversy in that avenue. But tonight I'm calling in about the concerning rise in crime. Bloomington ranks in the bottom two next to Minneapolis when it comes to crime in Minnesota. Neighbors, guests, and others are feeling uneasy in their community and see the lack of enforcement on city codes, ordinances, and laws that are followed. Last week, I walked in the Smith Park area, and the porta potty was burned down to the ground, sitting there in a pile of plastic, and it's still not replaced. I walked by there about a couple hours ago, and the porta potty's still not there over near the baseball fields. The carts along the American Boulevard, our area, are still prominent, and people are walking in the middle of the streets. It's become all too common on the east side of Bloomington. When I call the police and see cars parked facing the wrong way on the wrong side of the street, the police department transfers me over to non-emergency. Then it goes over to traffic, and then it goes to finally a voicemail. But then I call back to the police department and ask for traffic, and then they transferred me over to traffic engineering, interestingly enough. This is really unacceptable, and some neighbors are not even calling in because nothing is being done in their neighborhood as a result of the calls. So I'm just giving you guys my experience with a call last week to the police. Our neighbors in Minneapolis are experiencing tragic losses, and in the last 2 weeks, 3 young innocent children have been shot in the head, and one has died from the gunshot wounds to the head. And this should really concern all. This young girl was eating a Happy Meal in the back seat, and I'd like more people to say the prayers for these young children. I have 2 young children myself. This is very concerning. And another, Bloomington was again in the news. A 23-year-old was arrested in Bloomington over the weekend for killing a person that was just graduating from St. Thomas School, and a family member ended up walking in to grab the diploma for the degree. So with the recent budget talks indicating that Bloomington is now in the black as far as budget, I would like to know where the city is at with the budget for the police. Now, I know that budget's allocated for the police, but in the next council meeting, Mr. Verbrugge, please let the public know where we sit with funding and support for our fine Bloomington police. All of us want a similar thing. We want a safe and secure community to live in and support. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the call. Ms. Wilson.
Yeah, Leanne, do we have additional callers for agenda item 4.2, the public comment period?
None as of the moment, but anyone who wants to speak on that agenda, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. And we have Billy Holmes who wants to speak. Please go ahead, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Holmes. Welcome.
Hi, Mayor Bussey, City Council members. Just wanted to voice my support for you and for the city police. And I know it's tough to sit there every week and get a bunch of irate rhetoric. And I just urge you to use some prudence and common sense, and try to keep things in balance and not be swayed too much by people who call in with long diatribes. That's all I have to say. Good night.
Good night. Thanks for the call.
Leah, additional callers?
None as of the moment. Please continue.
Can we make one final call? Anyone on item 4.2 who wishes to speak? If you could press star 1 now if you're on hold and listening. Public comment period, item 4.2.
Last call, Leah. Did that generate anybody pressing star 1?
No other callers as of this time.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you much. With that, we'll close tonight's public comment period, and we'll move on to item 5, which are our introductory items. And the first introductory item we have is a proclamation for Memorial Day. Obviously, this Monday is Memorial Day, federal holiday, an act established by Congress to commemorate and honor the men and women who have died while in service to the United States Armed Forces. And we have, as we typically do, a Memorial Day proclamation that I will read right now. Proclamation for Memorial Day, May 31st, 2021. Whereas the tradition of Memorial Day dates back to 1868, when General John A. Logan called for a nationwide day of remembrance to pay tribute to those who gave their lives by serving our country. And whereas Congress designated the last day in May as Memorial Day in 1971 to honor the nation's fallen soldiers. And whereas it is important to recognize members of the military who have died in the nation's service and to consider their sacrifice toward preserving our freedoms. And whereas we grieve with the families and friends of those who have been lost and hope they find comfort in knowing their loved ones died with honor. And whereas during the week of Memorial Day 2021, prisoners of war missing in action flags will be flown at Bloomington Civic Plaza and the Public Works Building as a reminder of our unreturned soldiers and to symbolize the courage and sacrifice that the members of our armed forces have given on behalf of this nation. Now, therefore, I, Tim Bussey, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim Monday, May 31st, 2021 as Memorial Day in Bloomington, and I urge all residents to remember and revere those who have died in the service of the United States of America so that their sacrifices will not be in vain. It's always seen as the traditional kickoff to summer, the last day of May this year, and really leading us into the summer. But however you celebrate this long 3-day weekend, I do hope you take a moment to remember what the true meaning of the weekend actually is, and be sure to take a moment to pause and think about the folks who gave their lives in service to this country and protection of this country and sacrificing their lives for our freedom. So. A question, Mr. Verbrugge, do we know, will there be a Memorial Day observance at Bloomington Cemetery this year? I don't know that I've heard of one.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm not aware of an observance that has been scheduled. I do know that the parade that has usually occurred on Memorial Day is not occurring this year, but we will follow up and get that information back out to you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you. With that, we will move on to our consent agenda this evening. And who has our consent agenda this evening? Is it Councilmember Coulter? Councilmember Coulter with our consent business. Item 6, Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did not hear anything from the city manager regarding any holds from the consent agenda. And I'm not seeing anyone virtually jump for their hand, so I will assume that continues to be the case, in which case I will move approval of items 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Coulter, a second by Councilmember Carter to approve tonight's consent agenda. Any council commentary or any other questions? Hearing none. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga.
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Wolter,
Aye.
Lohman,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Our consent agenda is accepted. We'll move on to item 7 tonight, our hearings, resolutions, and ordinances. And our first public hearing tonight is item 7.1. It's a public hearing and resolution of support to participate in the Minnesota DEED Small Cities Development Program Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Program. And our HRA administrator, Ms. Erica Coleman, is here tonight to lead us through this. Good evening, Ms. Coleman. Welcome. This is a lot earlier than we typically get to you. Usually it's well after 10 by the time we get to you. So I'm glad we can get to you a little earlier tonight.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Bussey and members of the council. I have a very, very brief presentation just to help with the information as I'm speaking. I'll share my screen now. And are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you. As you said, this is the Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Program. CDBG-CV, public hearing and resolution of support. And so the council is asked to open and close a public hearing and adopt a resolution of support for CDBG-CV funded activities, specifically tied to the city's application for additional funding through the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development Small Cities Grant Program. Entitlement CDBG communities like Bloomington are usually unable to apply for the small cities grant funds. However, Congress provided an exception for entitlement communities to apply for CDBG-CV funds related to COVID-19 activities. The DEED CDBG-CV program is designed to help non-entitlement and entitlement communities or counties to prepare, prevent, or respond to the health and economic impacts of COVID-19. The activities must serve primarily low to moderate income persons. With approval, staff will submit an application for CDBG-CV funds for a total of $155,000 from the list of eligible activities as determined by DEED. Applications are competitively evaluated and ranked based on need, community impact, and cost effectiveness. The City of Bloomington is applying for funds in the public service category, which is intended to provide a new or increased level of public service. The two approved categories or activities that we are applying for under public service are housing assistance, which is to provide up to 6 continuous months of emergency payments, up to $6,000 for low to moderate income eligible households, seniors and people living with disabilities economically impacted by COVID-19 to make rent, mortgage, or utility payments. Payments must be made to the social and/or service provider of the household. Payments to cover past due rent, mortgage, or utilities are allowed for up to 6 continuous months, provided the necessary supporting documentation is included. The maximum amount under this application is $120,000 per grantee. As you know, City of Bloomington would be the grantee. Food shelf assistance is to provide food shelf pantries with increased access to food and delivery support for low to moderate income households, seniors, and people living with disabilities that are also economically impacted by the pandemic and/or inability to access nutritious food. DEED has informed staff that the application that we submit must identify the community partners that will administer the funds. For the food shelf assistance, we have identified VEEP as the best fit to receive the assistance of up to $35,000 or $35,000 total, actually. Staff has also reached out to multiple organizations to determine interest in administering the emergency housing assistance, including culturally specific focused organizations. CLUES has expressed interest in partnering with Bloomington to deliver the housing funds to Bloomington residents. They primarily serve those in the Latino community. Another organization may be added if they are able to meet the application deadline. Applications are due Tuesday, June 1st, and successful applicants will be notified in early July 2021. Awards must be expended within 32 months from the award letter. I can stand for questions, as that was the end of my information, and we could have a public hearing and then move to adopt a resolution if you support it.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Council, any questions of Ms. Coleman regarding the CDBG CV grant. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. So I know that Veep also does emergency rent assistance, and I'm wondering if they weighed in on whether they'd be interested in being in an organization for that piece too.
Thank you, Mayor Bussey and Councilmember Carter. To be perfectly honest, we did not ask Veep. And the reason we did not ask Veep is because Veep is already receiving an award from the city of Bloomington with the possibility of additional funding under our CDBG CV funds allocation. And so the focus would be to try and increase our culturally specific focused community partners and residents in Bloomington.
Thank you for clarifying that. Makes total sense.
Council, any additional questions? If not, this is a public hearing, and we will open the public hearing on item 7.1, which is a public hearing on the resolution of support to participate in the MINDEED Small Cities Development Program, Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Program. Ms. Wilson.
Leah, this is Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any callers that wish to speak on agenda item 7.1, the CDBG Block Grant Coronavirus Program?
Anyone who wants to speak on that agenda, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. And you don't have anyone who wants to speak on that specific agenda, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Council, we have no one coming forward to speak electronically at our item 7.1. I'd look for a motion to close tonight's public hearing on item 7.1.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Martin, a second by Councilmember Coulter to close the public hearing on item 7.1. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0 to close the public hearing on item 7.1. Council, questions, comments, concerns? This seems like a good step forward, a need that we could fill with DEED Small Cities Development Program grant money. Any questions on this or anything to add about it? If not, I would look for action on this.
Mayor, I'm happy to make that motion.
Councilmember Martin.
I will move that we adopt the resolution, a resolution in support to participate in the Minnesota DEED Small Cities Redevelopment Program, Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Program.
Do we have a second?
Beloga, second.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Martin, a second by Councilmember Beloga to adopt the resolution of support in support of the CDBG CV program. Council, additional comments? Hearing none, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Item 7.2 is another public hearing, and this is a resolution to approve the issuance of multifamily housing revenue bonds for benefit of Old Cedar Limited Partnership. And I believe our CFO, Lori Economy Scholler, is here with us this evening. Good evening, Ms. Economy Scholler. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you is for 8012 Old Cedar Avenue South. The project is for up to 68 low and medium income and moderate income multi-housing development. Reuter Walton is the development company. These are conduit bonds. up to a taxable revenue bonds not to exceed $11 million. They are, the notes are special limited obligations, so they are not financial obligations of the city of Bloomington, and no taxpayer dollars will be funding these bonds or the repayment of these bonds. Julie Eddington, our bond attorney, has been working on this project with the city and the developer, and she's available if there's questions. This project did receive an allocation through the state to issue these bonds. So after the public hearing, we are requesting approval of the bond issuance. So we stand for questions at this time.
Thank you. Council, any questions on this? Any questions? Seeing none, at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing on item 7.2, which is a resolution to approve the issuance of multifamily housing revenue bonds for benefit of Old Cedar Limited Partnerships. Ms. Wilson.
Leah, do we have any callers for agenda item 7.2?
I'm seeing no callers as of this time, ma'am.
Thank you.
Council, we have no one coming forward to speak on item 7.2. I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Coulter.
Second.
I've got a motion by Councilmember Coulter, a second by Councilmember Martin to close the public hearing on item 7.2. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0 to close the public hearing on item 7.2. Council, any questions on this? This is a project we approved earlier this spring, and now is the financing piece of the puzzle to make it continue moving forward. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. No questions. I just wanted to reiterate something that Ms. Economy Scholler said a moment ago, that this is the city is strictly acting as a conduit for these bonds, that this is not a financial obligation of the city. The principal and the interest on the bond will all be paid by the borrower, and so on. The city is we're just basically the pass through for the moment. I just wanted to make sure folks got that, lest there be any confusion about that. And Mayor, if there are no other questions or comments, I'm happy to make a motion.
Let me make one last call regarding comments or questions. And I appreciate the clarification, Councilmember Coulter. I see no one coming forward. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move to approve a resolution authorizing the issuance of multifamily housing revenue notes for the benefit of Old Cedar Limited Partnership, approving a housing program and authorizing the execution of related documents.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Coulter, second by Councilmember Martin, to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of multifamily housing revenue notes. Council, further discussion? Seeing no hands up, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much for that. Looking forward to them moving on this project. Thanks much for that. We'll move on to item 7.3, which is not a public hearing, but we will be taking public comment on this one. And this is a proposed school crosswalk safety improvements and France Avenue striping changes. And Ms. Amy Marone from our traffic division is with us to lead us through this one. Although I don't see her on the screen right now.
My apologies.
Standing by. Oh, there she is. There she is. Good evening, Ms. Marone. Welcome. And I believe you might be on mute.
Good evening, Council. I'm going to share my presentation with you as well.
Looking
All
good.
right.
Yep, please go ahead.
So back in January, I visited you and presented 3 spot safety improvements that we were proposing to implement with our PMP reconstruct and overlay projects this year. And tonight I'm bringing one additional recommended improvement for consideration with the 2021 PMP reconstruct project. The section we're going to talk about is France Avenue south of Old Shakopee Road. And while France Avenue north of Old Shakopee Road is a Hennepin County roadway, the segment that we're talking about to the south is under city jurisdiction. The traffic volumes range from a little over 6,000 vehicles per day when you're up near the commercial and apartment driveways, and then they drop down to about 4,000 down to 1,000 vehicles per day on the section that we're looking at between 108th and 110th Street. Okay, so this is a graphic or a photo that shows this crosswalk location at France Avenue and 108th Street. This was taken prior to 2020, and it's facing to the south. So to the left, a half a block is Westwood Elementary School, and to the right is the new 108 Place Apartments, just a little bit to the west of this location. And one thing that we heard as we started having the open houses for the reconstruction project was some concerns about pedestrian crossing safety at this location. And I had also been working with school district representatives back starting in 2019 with some similar concerns about the increase in pedestrian traffic with the new apartment building, and then just better serving the students and pedestrians within the walking area of the school. And then lastly, I'd also received contact from some more parent groups that live to the west of here through some of their contacts with our co-ed department. And so we started taking a look at the concerns that we were hearing. Primarily, the concern is with pedestrians or students crossing the north leg of the intersection because there is no stop control at this location, and they're crossing a 4-legged undivided. And I just popped this graphic down in the bottom just to remind people of the multiple threat that happens when we have a 4-lane undivided roadway. If a pedestrian starts to cross the road and the first vehicle in the outside lane stops, there's still a significant side obstruction and a chance that a pedestrian could still be hit by the other vehicle that's driving in the same direction because the limited sight lines with the 4-lane undivided roadway. So following the initial concerns that we had heard and the working that I'd been doing with the school district, we made some changes and interim safety improvements at this location. And council, you may recall these because you did approve adding to the budget some additional overhead street lighting. And so what we did is repositioned one existing light and added another light so that they are placed to light and illuminate over the crosswalks. We also removed or ground out the crosswalk markings on the south leg of France Avenue and added crosswalk markings across the east leg to provide better guidance to students and drivers of where is the route that they should be anticipating and watching for pedestrians. We relocated and added a little bit of additional signage and those are good improvements that we can make when we don't have a construction project to partner with. But now with 108th Street reconstruction, what we're proposing, in addition to the sidewalk gap that's getting filled with the project already, so this is already included in the project that makes the sidewalk connection on the north side of 108th Street between the new 108 Place Apartments and then going to the east to France Avenue. We're looking at the opportunity to construct a crosswalk enhancement at that location. So I'm not intending for you to be able to read this graphic, but more to show that there are a lot of design documents that are becoming available that we can use when we're addressing pedestrian crossing safety concerns. Some of the latest guidance here was published in 2020 from the local road research board that gives guidance and suggestions on how to improve pedestrian crossings at uncontrolled crossing locations, which is what we're looking at here. No matter what document you look at, the the best way to improve pedestrian crossing safety is always going to be, we're going to be looking at the volumes on the roadways, the speeds posted and traveled on the roadways, and the cross section of the roadway. And so you can see over here that this clip that I grabbed is, it's for a 2-lane roadway with traffic volumes less than 9,000 vehicles per day, and for 30 mile per hour or less, which is the posted speed limit on this roadway. And that gives some options for consideration on treatments that would be an improvement. And I think one of the most important things to look at is that the traffic volumes are relatively low on France Avenue. And for us to have room to make in-road improvements to shorten the crossing distance, the first step we have to do is look at reducing or changing the roadway cross section. And so here's just yet another graphic that that shows that that the proposed treatments would be a function of number of lanes, vehicle speeds, and traffic volumes. So what we are proposing is a reduction in the number of vehicle lanes on France Avenue. And the merge would happen just south of the commercial and apartment building driveways on France Avenue, and would reduce down to one through vehicle lane in each direction, and the rest would be a striped shoulder. And with that enhancement, we would also be able to construct curb bump outs to increase the visibility of pedestrians crossing the street, encourage slower turning speeds, and reduce the crossing distance. One other benefit of a curb bump out treatment is it provides a gateway or a visual cue to an entrance to a residential area. And the research does show that there can be up to a 45% crash reduction when you use curb bump outs versus the wider cross section without curb bump outs. Well, I'm not, asking, I'm asking the council to approve the concept of going from a 4-lane to a 2-lane on France Avenue, and not necessarily to approve striping plans. But I do think it's important to just show how the existing striping and how the proposed striping do tie together. And so this graphic shows a little bit further out how we go from the 4-lane to the 3-lane. And then down as you're approaching 110th Street, it ties in exactly to the lane cross sections that are in that area already. So it's an all-way stop at France Avenue and 110th Street. And it is already converted down to 1 lane in each direction on the cross streets of 110th Street, as well as already on France Avenue south of this intersection. A little bit closer look at what the lane widths would be through the curb bump out, as well as the resulting lane widths with the lane reduction. And again, a closer look at the lane widths that we'd be proposing. So with this, we did go through a public engagement process, and we utilized our Let's Talk Bloomington tool for engagement. And with this page, we provided information about the proposed project, contact information, all the graphics that you're seeing tonight, as well as the proposed layout, and then a resident survey. And we did do a direct mailing to approximately 700 addresses within the affected area of both the striping changes and this proposed pedestrian crosswalk enhancement. And that mailing contained information on how to get to the Let's Talk Bloomington page, as well as information on how to speak at the Planning Commission meeting, and this information about the City Council meeting tonight. I have also been working closely with the school district, building principal, safety director, building and grounds, and their transportation department to make sure that we wouldn't be constructing something that would have any negative impacts to the school as far as obstructions for their buses. I also did contact Met Transit just to make sure that they don't have any routing through here that would be affected, and they indicated that the proposed changes would not impact their service in any way. We had 6 responses to our survey. Only one of the responses indicated that they were not in support of the striping changes or the crosswalk enhancement. One other thing that we had mentioned on the Let's Talk Bloomington is that once traffic patterns normalize a little bit more, so possibly later this fall or possibly next year, we will collect some new traffic turning movement data at this intersection and do a an always stop warrant analysis. And this is a potential location where we would also add an always stop if the warrants, which are kind of the rules and guidance for when you install always stop, if those are met, we would add those as well. They would work very well with the proposed curb bump outs. They could also be added without. However, we definitely see less compliance at always stops when we have a 4-lane undivided approach versus where we have 1 lane in each direction. So the resident who was opposed to the curb bump out and the striping changes did indicate that they would be in support of always stop condition. So as I had mentioned, we visited Planning Commission on May 13th, and they were in support of the proposed crosswalk enhancement and the striping changes. And so tonight, I'm bringing these to the council for consideration and discussion. I've also indicated to the residents that they would have an opportunity to provide comments to the council at this time.
Thank you so much. Council, any questions on this? Councilmember Lohman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions and a comment. I'll just go with my comment. I'll be very interested to see what staff has to say about that all-way stop. Very interested to see where that goes with that. And nice job on this particular presentation. Any concerns at all with that bump out, with how bikes would travel through that corridor? Have we had any issues at all with that? I know we've got a lot of bikes coming up and down France Avenue and kind of then going on to 110th, and there's also some on 108th. Any concerns about that at all?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lohman, that's a great question. And that was a comment that we received from the residents as well, is that we have this great new trail adjacent to France Avenue north of Old Shakopee and no real guidance on how to get to it. So the additional striped shoulder area on France Avenue would help, kind of extend that space for on-road biking. And the proposed lane width next to the curb bump out is 16 feet, which is wide enough to have a share the lane type situation. So we're looking at whether we would add an edge line through there to provide additional guidance for the cyclists. Or if we just, it's a very wide lane to get through there, and that we do build it with that wide lane just to make sure that we're not obstructing any of the larger vehicles that are turning onto and off of France Avenue from that location too. So try to size it so it's just wide enough to provide that safety benefit, but not to provide an obstruction for vehicles and not to block cyclists as well.
And then thank you for that. And then finally, in terms of the speed that's there, any discussion at all around just reducing the speed limit once you get into that residential area? I know that not only with this area here, but as we go further down France Avenue, there are some concerns around that. Any consideration of reducing the speed limit on that France Avenue as we go further south?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Lohman, I know that the ability to change speed limits is a newer thing that is authority that's been given at the city levels. And I believe that is something that will be approaching the council in the next few months about at a larger level and not just at specific isolated locations.
Thanks for the clarification of that. If it does happen to coincide, I would like us to consider that. I know I've heard from many neighbors in that area about the speeds. So thank you.
Thank you.
Council, additional questions? Just a quick question, Ms. Marone. So this is similar to the lane reductions on Normandale Boulevard at about 110th, where we go from 4 lanes down to 2. Do you know, are there issues on Normandale in terms of speed, or I can't imagine congestion, or just the basic traffic counts on Normandale Boulevard in this section as opposed to France Avenue in this section. My point being, of course, I don't think to reduce the lanes from 4 to 2 in each or 1 to each direction, I think will be minimally impactful on the area because it works on Normandale. I think it would work here as well.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's a good question. I didn't really stress the traffic volumes too much, but we are right in the range of traffic volumes where we have had great success and very little negative impacts or comments after we made the changes going from a 4-lane to a 2-lane. So the biggest, the thing that we have to be the most careful about is that actual lane merge and getting that placed at the right location. The reason we're not extending it a little further to the north is because we already have like an auxiliary lane that turns into the commercial driveway, and we don't want we don't want conflicting movements happening at that location. So we're very strategic about how we do the lane merges, making sure that those meet the guidance on the correct length and try to place them at the best locations that we have the opportunity. The only times that we have troubles is if you're unable to see the lane merge coming up ahead. And so we've had to add signage sometimes if they're over the crest of a hill to give drivers a little bit more warning, or if they're right at an intersection, that can be a little bit tricky as well. We don't have either of those situations at this location.
Very good. That makes sense. Council, additional questions? If not, as I mentioned when we talked about the agenda, this isn't officially a public hearing, but we do want to open it up for public comment. Obviously, this would be a change in that neck of the woods off of France Avenue on 108th Street. So we do want to take the opportunity to listen to public comment on this. There has been a number of different opportunities with the outreach and engagement efforts that have gone on so far, but still want to hear from folks if they do have anything to offer. Ms. Wilson, anybody on the line looking to talk on item 7.3?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Leah, this is Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Leah, do we have a Linda Johnson on the line?
Yes, we do. Ms. Linda Johnson, please press star 1.
Ms. Johnson, are you there?
And Ms. Johnson's line is now open. Please go ahead.
This is Linda Johnson.
Good evening. Welcome.
On 108th. Thank you. I live on 108th and Abbott, which is right across the street on the east side of the pickleball courts and the Westwood Elementary School football lacrosse field. I drive 108th to France Avenue for over 20 years. I drove it twice a day as that was my route to work. And I would leave about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I would come home around between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. And in all of those 20 plus years, never did I have a student attempting to cross France Avenue there at 108th. Now, I have been retired for the past 5 years, and I drive 108th to France Avenue almost daily, sometimes multiple times a day, because we use the shopping centers, et cetera, in that area. And again, during those years, I have never had a student standing waiting to cross at that intersection. If we do anything at the intersection, I'd like to suggest that we put one of those lights up that we have like over by Jefferson High School or the middle school, where if the kids are going to go across the street, they push a button and a light flashes when the cars stop and allow them to go across the street. And that's a 4-lane street, I'll remind you. And there I have been stopped a few times over the years for students crossing. Works great. So I'm suggesting that for 108th and France. As far as the meeting tonight goes, I just want it noted on the record, we have not been invited to participate in any survey or anything. We did get a card in the mail about this agenda item, and it came to us the day after the Planning Commission meeting. So I did not get an opportunity to speak to them because we didn't get our mail from the post office till the 14th. In looking online at some of the Planning Commission's notes, they say that there's 6,600 vehicles per day go south from France to 108th, 3,900 from 108th to 110th, and 1,100 from south of 110th. My concern with this striping and going to 2 lanes is that most of the cars, it appears, based on their statistics, turn either into the shopping center, bank, Willie McCoy's on the west, or into the apartment building on the east, and never even get to 108. So I don't see a need to change to a 2-lane there. I would really like to recommend that we just do the light that will stop the traffic if someone wishes to cross, and put the money that you would spend on this striping and redoing the roads into the 494 project where you're looking for more dollars. I think that's all I've got to say about it.
Thank you much for your comments. Appreciate it.
Leah, do we have other callers wishing to speak on agenda item 7.3?
No other callers as of this time. Please proceed.
We have no other callers on the line at all?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Very good. With that, I guess we can close our public comment time on item 7.3. And I see Councilmember Nelson's hand up. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was going to follow up on the public comment to see if there was any information about the cost for flashing lights versus what's being proposed here.
Ms. Marone?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Nelson, it's a good question. The RRFB rectangular rapid flashing beacon treatment that we have on France Avenue, just a couple blocks north of Old Shakopee Road, I believe that was on the order of about $60,000 to $70,000 for the cost for that. Actually, it may have been even a little bit more. I forgot that it has the signal mast arm mounted treatment to get that over the roadway. So it's a significantly more expensive than this treatment would be. It also, the traffic volumes on France Avenue north of Old Shakopee Road are about 14 to 15,000 vehicles per day. So it is more than double the traffic volumes that we're dealing with at this location. If we could have reduced the number of lanes and solved it that way by reducing the exposure of the pedestrians to the cars, that would have definitely been our first choice. It wasn't a tool that we could do. We need the lanes. We need all 4 lanes for the roadway capacity with those higher traffic volumes. And so that's when it pushes us into the more expensive treatments with the mast arm mounted RRFB. I love the RRFBs, and I think they are a great tool. I just don't think that is the tool that we need to use at this location.
Great. Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify because it was my thought that those were more expensive, and I appreciate the information on that. And so just wanted to clarify that for people.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. And just to clarify further, Ms. Marone, so you said the crossing arms are north of $60,000, $70,000. What would the restriping costs be? Any idea?
The restriping costs on this project are going to be very minimal. So the contractor, if the council does approve this, so be added in as an add alternate on the project that's going to be awarded. The striping changes themselves will just be grinding of the existing striping on this section, and then the city forces will come in and do the striping, and so we will lay that out manually in the field, and city forces will be doing that. There is going to be a seal coat on this roadway in the next couple of years, so it will get a clean slate at that time and can continue with this striping change. The other cost that would be added is the actual curb extension construction. And I don't have the exact dollar amount on that, but from just a rough estimating standpoint, if we were talking to a neighborhood about this from a traffic calming perspective, we say they are about $10,000 for a pair of curb bump outs. So I don't really want to be quoted on that exact price. I can certainly get it to you if that is important.
No, I think the ballpark is a helpful price to work off of. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Councilmember Lohman.
Just two questions after the public comment period there. So we had the comment around the students. What about that count? Are folks not seeing students there? Has there been a change in the area that would warrant that from the schools? I know you talked with them. I'd like to get a little comment on that. And then secondarily, there was a comment around the notices not going out on time. Could we talk a little bit about those notices and when they went out, just in case there was a problem with that or snafu?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Lohman, we certainly can. So I'm sorry, flipping through my pages for some notes, and okay, so normally we would go and do a pedestrian count whenever we're looking at these changes. Unfortunately, we were first notified about the concern in 2019, and then shortly after that, so it was late. I remember standing out there in the extreme cold. So it was very late in 2019. And our plan was in spring of 2020, we were going to be out there as soon as the kids were actively resuming walking to school. And we all know what happened in 2020. And so there were no students in class at the end during that counting season. And then this year there has been not 100% of students are fully in the schools. And so what we did instead, and the changes that we know of, are the new apartment building that has been constructed, that 108 Place Apartments. That is one of the significant changes. I did work with the school.
How many units are in that 108th Street apartment? Do you know offhand?
Councilmember,
I don't.
I believe there are 42 in there, Councilmember Lohman.
Okay, thank you. And so that would also contribute. That's been a major change that we've seen in the area. And so I think if I remember right or correctly, Mayor, don't we also have some affordable housing in that area too that was kind of targeted towards folks being able to have kids living in that area?
In the 108 place, yes, I believe that was the case, Councilmember.
So, Councilmember Lohman, since we were not able to get current and accurate counts, I did work with the school district, and they have good mapping tools where they map where each of their students live for the schools. And so there are 30 students currently that live west of France Avenue that live within the walking boundary of Westwood Elementary. So there's potentially 30 students that need to cross France Avenue to access Westwood Elementary. So given that we don't have, volumes and this is not a good representative year, nor was last year, that's the best information that we have to go from at this time. Was there, the mailing. So while I don't have the exact date of the mailing, I know that it went out approximately 2 weeks prior to the Planning Commission meeting. And I apologize for people who didn't receive it prior to that. And I certainly can follow up with the one weekly to give the date that mailing did go out and the meeting dates. That flyer that the resident indicated she received, that's what we sent out to everybody in this area. So those parts, the properties that I had mentioned, it was simply a postcard that gave information on how to get to all the project information on the Let's Talk Bloomington page and those 2 meeting dates. So there wasn't a mailed survey that went out separately. All of the information was on that one direct mailing.
Anything further, Councilmember?
I think that just about covers it. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Councilmember Nelson, is that an old hand or a new hand?
That one's actually new, Mayor.
Very good. Councilmember Nelson.
All right, two quick questions. One, will any portion of this project be assessed to residents in the area or businesses?
Councilmember Nelson, it would not be assessed. This added curb out work would not be assessed.
All right. And then in terms of community engagement on the project, along the lines that Councilmember Lohman was asking, I know that you did fairly extensive engagement with regards to the street project on 108th. Was this portion of that discussed with residents in that area to the west, where we're going to redo that street, which I think is driving this project during that process?
Councilmember Nelson, it was brought up. This concern was brought up during that initial engagement process, like you mentioned. And those residents were all included in the mailing notification area with this additional information about this proposed change or proposed addition.
Great. Thank you very much for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Council, anything additional? If not, I'd look for action. We have the proposal out in front of us. Good discussion here. We did get some feedback. So, Council, I'd look for direction on this, whether or not we want to move forward with this, and look for a motion one way or the other.
Mayor, I'd be happy to make that motion. And I just, unless there's some other discussion, I just wanted to say that I think, we got at least 30 kids, and we don't know if there'll be more coming through the intersection. I think we've got to do everything we can to protect our young people that are in our neighborhood. I want to thank the staff, really for your work to try to let us do that. That being said, I'd be happy to move the approval of the staff recommended pedestrian crossing safety improvement at France Avenue west of 108th Street, which includes curb bulb outs on the north leg of the intersection, both sides of France Avenue, and striping changes on France Avenue between 108th and 110th Streets.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second by Councilmember Carter. We have a motion by Councilmember Lohman, a second by Councilmember Carter, to approve the staff recommended pedestrian crossing safety improvements at France Avenue on West 108th Street. Hearing no further council discussion on this, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Bloga.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Walter.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you much, Ms. Marone, for that one. Moving on to item 7.4, which is a variance. This is not a public hearing. This is a variance to consider to paint the existing uncoated exterior materials, basically to paint some brick on a building on Penn Avenue at 7901 Penn Avenue. And I believe Mr. Centenario from our planning staff is going to lead us through this. Mr. Centenario?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, you summarized it very well. The proposed application is for variance to paint some brick that's uncoated. The address is at 7901 Penn Avenue. So here we have the site. This is I'll have an image momentarily, but this is a former jewelry store. The building it's a small building on the corner of Southtown and Penn Avenue. You can see it outlined in red. And it's been vacant for a little while. There is a bank that would like to occupy this space. And along with that, we often see when you have a new tenant, they want to make some improvements. That's the case here. One of those improvements is they want to paint some brick that's the lower 3 feet of the former jewelry store. And you can see it in the image. So the building is predominantly stucco. Like I said, the bottom 3 feet, you essentially have a brick veneer band, which is fairly common architectural component. And the building itself is about 20 years old. So we're talking about a fairly new building that frankly is in quite good shape. Before the planning commission meeting, I went out to the site and just snapped a couple images of the brick itself. And as far as I could tell, it looks like it's in excellent condition. And the reason the condition is very important is the city code outlines when a variance is appropriate to paint exterior materials, and we'll touch on that in a moment. Here's just a two-dimensional line drawing of the proposed improvements. Largely, the building would stay the same footprint. The glass block would be replaced with more traditional windows. They would square off the entryway for a more modern look. Obviously, you can see that Bank of America is the intended tenant of this building. But then on the lower image, you could see what they intend to do with the brick, and that's to paint it. And they have a particular type of paint made by Stowe, which is a manufacturer that largely deals with EIFS and acrylic finish materials. So going to the city code requirement itself, what we're really discussing is what's underlined in red. Essentially, it says that if it's not a coated building or a painted exterior, you can't paint it. And then it says there's a subsection G that's outlined in the city code, and that tells you in what instances or what situations a variance would be appropriate. And there's a lot of text on the slide. This is actually a little more of a summary. But essentially, the code indicates that there needs to be some sort of condition, maintenance condition or existing condition of the material itself that warrants coating it. So just the desire to change the color of the brick, even if it's in great condition, is not one of the scenarios where the code would allow a variance to be approved. The staff was not supportive of the variance, and nor was the planning commission. And there are several reasons why the city does not allow commercial buildings to be painted unless they already had been painted. You do see older buildings in the city that have been, and that is to limit maintenance. Once you paint buildings, you have to continue to paint buildings, and that is it is much less expensive than some alternatives, but it is something that you have to keep doing every few years. And inevitably, there are going to be some buildings where the maintenance is deferred, where a tenant leaves the building, it's vacant, and the property owner or tenant doesn't maintain that paint. So you will get potential eyesores or maintenance issues from peeling paint or degraded exterior materials. So it's definitely an aesthetic concern within the city. And then also there's a legitimate building issue with moisture intrusion. When you paint brick, which is a very vapor permeable material, with a less permeable material, you have the potential of causing interior problems with moisture. And so that's not so much an aesthetic issue, but it's more just an issue with the building itself. And we like to avoid those when possible. Another thing that we hear fairly often when new tenants want to paint a brick exterior is that it has to conform with a particular image or scheme from a company, where companies change their color palette with some regularity, and oftentimes you get new signage or new exterior changes to comply with those color palettes. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's their business. But I don't think that really applies in this case. We do have a Bank of America branch that is under construction on West 98th Street, and it has incorporated a lot of that kind of reddish brick exterior. So that kind of tells us that there probably are some alternatives that the tenant could consider other than painting the brick to match a particular color scheme. And as I mentioned, there are a fair number of alternatives. While more expensive, the existing brick could be replaced. And there's a very wide array of different colors for brick products. It is the existing material is a brick veneer. It's not a structural brick, so it's not. They wouldn't have to demolish the building or anything. It's a face brick. Alternatively, there could be a different application on top of the existing material, such as a different concrete product or stucco, or even metal panels. And so instead of painting, there are different options that do not require a variance. with that, we are recommending denial. We do not feel the variance meets the required findings of fact, and we can go through those if you'd like. The Planning Commission also agreed with staff, and we do have a recommended motion below to continue the item till your next meeting and direct staff to prepare a resolution of denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Centenario. Council, questions? Now, Mr. Centenario, I believe you mentioned it in the staff report, but I think literally right across the street we had a similar request in the TCF building, just on the west side of Penn, and we denied that application to paint the brick there. And in hindsight, it was probably not a bad idea because I think shortly afterward, TCF Bank was sold, and I'm not even sure what the new color palette is for the new owners of TCF Bank. So, as I said, in hindsight, I think it was a prudent decision on top of all of the other decision points that we made along the way to deny that application to paint that brick as well.
That's right, Mr. Mayor. One thing I'd add is we all know brick is a very durable material. It lasts literally generations without extensive maintenance. Once you paint it, you have to maintain that. So it definitely increases the maintenance. And as you mentioned, the owners change, companies change, but the brick doesn't have to change. It can stay as is.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just have a few quick questions here. So paint has to be maintained. Are there situations in which we allow commercial buildings to have paint on them? I believe that like a fiber cement siding and other types have paint on them. Are there other situations in which we allow paint, but brick is different? Is that?
Sure.
Mr. Centenario.
Mayor, Councilmember, do you want to ask one question at a time, or should I just respond to this one first and then subsequent questions?
Why don't you go ahead and answer this one first? And
okay.
If Councilmember Martin has additional, or Councilmember Nelson has additional questions, we'll get to those as well.
Okay, sure. So the city code has two different categories, if you will, of exterior materials, primary and secondary. Brick is a primary exterior material. Fiber cement, for example, would be considered a secondary material, which is limited generally to 15% of a particular building elevation. Now, in the opportunity housing ordinance context, that we have incentives that change that standard. But for a commercial building like this, you're limited to 15% of an individual facade. Again, brick or stucco or glass, those are all primary exterior materials and they cannot be painted. So of that 15%, if you have fiber cement or EIFS or wood or some other secondary material, that can be painted, but it is limited.
Okay, quick follow-up. Is there any way for the applicant to consider this as secondary material? Is it less than 15% of the facade? And then paint it?
Mr. Mayor, council member, no, brick is identified as a primary material. And so we can't just recategorize it as a secondary so they can paint it.
Right. Is there any difference between this Stowe product, which is breathable, permeable, and regular paint, and or what the TCF Bank was proposing, which I believe was impregnating stain, but that may just be a problem with my recollection.
No, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, that's a very good memory. There are a variety of different paints, and some paints are intended to be slightly more vapor permeable than others. So if you think of traditionally paints are more of just like a skin on top of a wall or exterior. The Stowe product they have identified has some vapor permeability, and that's to reduce hydrostatic pressure from moisture essentially pushing against the paint from the inside of the brick, which causes bubbling and eventually adhesion to fail. which causes bubbles and peeling and the aesthetic issues that we talked about. However, while this paint is better than your traditional paint, it is still much less permeable than brick. So you still are going to have a vapor permeability issue. The stain that the variance proposal we heard from a couple of years ago, it still was a coating. So we're still dealing with the exact same standards, but it did clog up the porous nature of the brick to some degree. I don't recall any of the statistic on how vapor permeable it was. But one of the challenges with stain is that once you stain a brick, you can't unstain it. Whereas even if it's laborious, if you paint brick, you can restore the brick, you can remove it. It's expensive and time consuming, but it can be done. Whereas with the stain, it does penetrate a small fraction of the brick, and that's it. It's whatever the color of the stain is.
Okay. And then one last question. In our information, the architect that they're working with had a comment that said, quote, "The implementation of a top coat over the existing brick will create a layer of protection that will maintain the building's original intention for a longer timeline than if the brick was left exposed." I'm curious as to your opinion of that, and I don't know if the applicant is here, if they have any data to support that coating it will allow it to last longer, because that seems different than what the information you're providing is saying.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, council member, I just respectfully disagree with the applicant's statement. I think once you paint an exterior, I mean, you might be coating the brick, but from a overall maintenance perspective, it's going to require more work, and I think you're doing a disservice to the long-term maintenance of the building by painting it.
Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Council, do we have additional questions? I believe, Councilmember Nelson, I believe the applicant is available if we wanted to ask him the same question, if we wanted to do that, if you were interested in to hear his response. Mr. Klobuchar, I believe you're with us?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have.
Oh, we do not. I apologize. I thought we had him with us this evening.
As Mr. Klobuchar, I do not see him on our line.
I apologize. I was mistaken. So staff, or council, any additional questions of staff on this? And the Planning Commission and staff have recommended denial. Would look for the council's input on this. What direction do we want to go? Council? Councilmember Lohman.
Mayor, I think it would be hard. I remember quite vividly the conversation with the other applicant. This looks, it's not identical, but it's pretty close to that. So I'd find it hard not to follow what staff and what the Planning Commission is putting forward. So I'm definitely going to be supporting a denial of this particular request.
Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, at the risk of repeating almost exactly what Councilmember Lohman said, this is probably about as close an example of pretty much the exact same thing as we get in this business. I think there is desire to reconsider this, and I don't know that there is. It would be better looked at through revising city code rather than a variance like this. I think it's pretty much exactly like what we saw across the street, and I just don't think it's a good idea. So I will be supporting denial as well.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, I'll echo the comments of my colleagues. I just don't think the variance process is the right way to deal with this. If there was openness to looking at the code, potentially, it does seem like the data that's been provided by staff supports what we're doing in the code. So I'm not seeing a ton of reason to revisit that or to ask staff to spend a ton of time on that, unless there's others that feel differently. So I don't support a variance on this issue. I just wanted to make sure it was well thought out, and again, appreciate the effort of staff to provide that information.
I concur. Do any of you who just spoke up wish to speak forward further after Councilmember Beloga? Councilmember Beloga.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was under the belief, not seeing any other hands, that the discussion was complete, and I was prepared to offer the motion.
I think that's a wonderful idea. Councilmember Beloga.
Thank you. In case PL 2021-73, having been unable to make the required findings, which are A, C, and E, I move to continue the item to June 7th of 2021 meeting and direct staff to prepare a resolution of denial.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Beloga, second by Councilmember Martin to continue this item to the June 7th meeting and direct staff to prepare a resolution of denial. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Wolter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Busse?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Centenario. Appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
And we move on to item 7.5, which is a public hearing. And this is a discussion on an ordinance, the self-storage code amendments, back to the self-storage issue. And this would establish standards and remove the temporary moratorium. And we have talked about this more than a couple of times. And Mr. James from our planning department is here to talk us through this one more time. Good evening, Mr. James.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Let's see, yep, I believe you can hear me okay.
We can hear you and we can see your screen, yes.
All right, thank you. So before you tonight is a revised ordinance that reflects council's direction provided at the May 3rd meeting. So this ordinance then, if adopted tonight, the moratorium that's existing on self-storage facilities would be lifted with those new standards. Otherwise, the one-year moratorium is scheduled to end on June 22nd, so just under a month. So the previous slide outlined some of the latest meetings, but I thought I'd outline the process more generally here as an overview. So an outreach to property owners has occurred throughout this process, but staff conducted a zoning study last year in the fall that offered a variety of ways to address some of the issues that we've identified with self-storage. And study meetings were then held after that study was complete. So those study meetings are the end of last year before the Planning Commission and City Council. So at those study meetings then, staff received direction to draft an ordinance with an initial set of standards here I'll talk about in a minute. And then public hearings were held to consider that initial ordinance a couple months ago, so early 2021. And at those public hearings then, Planning Commission had suggested a less restrictive approach than was proposed. And they suggested a different approach. And then the council at their public hearing requested additional study. So staff returned to a council meeting after that and offered a variety of options before the council. But the council preferred a little bit more restrictive approach than was initially proposed. So this ordinance before you tonight then reflects that more restrictive approach. And so the Planning Commission, preferring a less restrictive approach, did recommend denial of this ordinance at its May 13th meeting. So the proposed ordinance then, as I mentioned, includes this initial set of standards I'll summarize in a minute, but these were presented previously. And it also includes a prohibition in the Lindale Avenue retrofit study area. so the broader area there, and then also that council approve the conditional use permit that's required of self-storage facilities. But first, just some quick background here. You've seen these slides previously, but in blue is where we currently allow self-storage facilities. And we have 9 in the city, so those are marked with a yellow dot. And we do require a conditional use permit today, and that's at the Planning Commission approval level. The zoning study outlined these 3 issues related to self-storage. So we have a disproportionate supply in Bloomington compared to our neighboring cities. The use generates low commercial and employment activity, and the height and lighting of these newer facilities pictured here, it really impacts adjacent residential properties. So then these initial recommendations were intended to mitigate those issues. So prohibiting self-storage in transit station areas, so that's a half-mile distance from those stations. Prohibiting in areas that we've designated as protected industrial, and then 500 feet away from residential properties that are zoned and used residential, and then any property adjacent to Lindale Avenue. So that was the initial set of recommendations. And then in tonight's ordinance, it's similar. We kept all those initial prohibitions, but we expanded the prohibition in the of Lindale to not only be adjacent parcels to Lindale, but within that entire Lindale study area. And then that study area is outlined in the yellow dashes here. And then, as I mentioned, the ordinance also includes council's approval of the CUP. So with all of those prohibitions in place under the proposed ordinance, we're left with these remaining areas shown in blue here that could potentially accommodate a self-storage facility. Granted, I think all of them have existing buildings and viable uses today. So none of them are readily available for self-storage, but there's roughly 4 sites that might accommodate self-storage in the future. And this ordinance would make 7 of the 9 self-storage facilities legally non-conforming. So the 2 that remain conforming are up on American Boulevard. But just to summarize, the remaining sites then are to the northwest of the city, a couple just north of 494. We've got a pretty small site just north of Civic Plaza. And then there's a site remaining up on American Boulevard. So here's a comparison then of the different approaches we've considered up to this point and how many sites would be available in each. And again, those estimated sites are simply a staff estimate based on site size and what sites might meet the code requirements. But a little bit more detail here. These are what each of those approaches entailed. So you can see the Planning Commission Council, agreed on prohibiting in that protected industrial and transit station areas. There's just some variation on what the prohibition should look like in that distance from residential, as well as the relationship to Lindale Avenue. But again, the proposed ordinance includes all those items under the council approach. For outreach, the meeting was noticed through e-subscribe emails that are sent out, and then of course through the SunCurrent publication. And then we provide regular updates on our zoning updates page that's pictured here. Staff also sent out letters to affected property owners. There's roughly, I believe there's 235 of those property owners that received letters at the start of this project in May last year. And then after we received direction in January, and again, more recently in April here to update them on the process. We did get a couple items of correspondence. So one from a resident that supported a complete prohibition of self-storage, and then one from a storage facility that didn't specify what exact approach they wanted, but just preferred a less restrictive approach. So we do have a recommended motion here to adopt tonight's ordinance, as well as a recommendation for a summary publication. I'm happy to answer questions at this point.
Council, any questions of Mr. James at this time? No questions, Council? If not, item 7.5 on our agenda is a public hearing, and at this time I would like to open the public hearing. On item 7.5, which is an ordinance regarding self-storage code amendments, it would establish standards and remove the temporary moratorium. Ms. Wilson, do we have any callers wishing to speak on item 7.5 tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Abigail, this is Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We don't have any public commenters at this time.
So no callers on the line at all?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Why don't we, if you could put the number, I see the number back on there. There's the number and the conference ID. We'll give everyone just another half a minute here or so to call in if you wish to speak on item 7.5. Give it just a minute here, because I know this has generated discussion in the past. And maybe, Ms. Wilson, if we can make one last check.
Any callers now, Abigail?
No, we don't have any public commenters calling.
Thank you.
Council, we have no one coming forward to speak on item 7.5. I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Beloga, second.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Martin, a second by Councilmember Beloga to close the public hearing on item 7.5. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0 to close the public hearing on item 7.5. Council, discussion on this one. We, as I said, we've talked about this on more than one occasion. Mr. James showed us the number of times we have brought it up in official meetings and as part of our study session. We've talked through this. We did talk about it in early May and kind of came to an agreement as to where we wanted this to be, and this is what we have seen back from the staff now. They brought it back with those recommendations that we made at that meeting. Is there anything additional, Council, that we wish to discuss on this? Council, any questions? Comments? If not, I would look for action on this, Council.
Mayor, I'm happy to make that motion.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move that we adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the City Code to establish additional standards for self-storage facilities and to remove the moratorium on self-storage facilities.
Second, Carter.
We have a motion by Councilmember Martin, a second by Councilmember Carter to adopt the ordinance attached to the staff report amending Chapter 21 regarding self-storage facilities and to remove the moratorium on self-storage facilities. Any additional discussion, Council? Hearing none. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. James, for your work on this. I know it has been a lot of work. Mr. Markegard as well, all the folks over in planning, thank you for pulling all of the information together. I think it was well researched and well thought out and well put together. So thanks much for that, and I think we came to a good conclusion on this discussion. So well done. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. We need a summary publication on this as well. Councilmember Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. I will move that in this case, to adopt the resolution authorizing summary publication of the ordinance attached to the staff report.
Second, Carter.
We have a motion and a second for summary publication on this item on 7.5. No further council discussion. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Bloga,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Coulter,
Aye.
Lohman,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. My apologies for trying to streamline the meetings as much as possible. I apologize for that. But again, thanks to Mr. Markegard, Mr. James, everyone in planning for the great work you did on this. Thanks much. Ms. Wilson, I believe that is the end of our public comment on this evening's meeting. I think it would be appropriate to dismiss the operator for tonight.
Abigail, this is Chris. We appreciate your assistance tonight, and we are all done with public comment.
Thank you so much. I'll be disconnecting this line now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your help tonight. Item 7.6 on our agenda is a resolution, the extension of the temporary patio permit. Mr. Markegard, Mr. Junker, I think Mr. Verbrugge, I think you're all going to weigh in on this one. So, Mr. Markegard, good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Bussey, council members. I do have a brief PowerPoint if I can get sharing rates.
You are good to go.
All right, thank you. So by way of background, I am joined by Mr. Junker this evening, who will help with questions. But during the pandemic, there were various governor's orders that limited bar and restaurant seating. And as part of that, the governor encouraged cities to be flexible during the unprecedented times. So based on that, the council adopted an ordinance and then a continuing resolution later that created flexibility in the form of a permit process for additional temporary outdoor seating at bars and restaurants. And the purpose of that was to fast track the normal approvals process. So normally a facility wanting to add outdoor seating would apply for a conditional use permit and for related liquor license amendments. The change also flexed on any non-safety related city codes. So examples of kind of non-safety related codes include parking, setbacks, or limits on the amount of time a tent can be in place. So we did have 14 restaurants that applied for and received a permit to provide temporary outdoor seating. And I will show you an example of one of these. This is the Applebee's restaurant on Lindale Avenue, and we are looking towards the west. So on the east side of the restaurant, they applied for approval to replace 5 parking spaces immediately adjacent to the restaurant with a new outdoor seating area. This is a restaurant that did not have any previous outdoor seating. So they received approval for 36 seats. It's about 1,000 square feet in area. And most of our applications, our 14 applications, were placed in parking lots. We had a few that had some green space available, but generally it was easier and quicker to replace parking. And with the pandemic, there was much less need for parking as well. So those recently, those governor's orders have been lifted regarding indoor seating restrictions. So that is effective on May 28th. That's this Friday. So the city ability to offer temporary flexibility were tied to those governor's orders. And so we're bringing forward a resolution tonight that would extend a temporary flexibility beyond May 28th to June 14th. And June 14th was selected because that's as far as we thought that we could legally go as a city given the tie-in with the governor's orders that are no longer in place. But at the same time, we do want to provide a little more time for restaurants to adjust. But that's really as far as we thought we could go. So permit holders would have two options going forward. They could either remove that temporary outdoor seating that they added, or they could apply to convert the temporary outdoor seating to permanent status. And that would be through the conditional use permit process and through the liquor license amendment process if they are a liquor license holder. A couple considerations that restaurants would take into consideration. First of all, the Metropolitan Council requires what's called a SAC fee or a sewer availability charge. And they waive that fee during the pandemic. The charge is meant to address a flow into the sanitary sewer system. And during the pandemic, while there would be more outdoor seating, they recognized that there would be less indoor seating and that would balance out. So until the orders were lifted, their plan was not to charge that SAC fee for the additional outdoor seating. However, given that the orders are lifted, it is the Metropolitan Council's expectation to collect those fees now for any permanent or continuing outdoor seating. So that would be an expense if a restaurant wanted to keep the seating in place longer, and probably the primary consideration that they would have. Another consideration is just a simple code compliance. What codes apply in many cases. The parking requirements would demand more parking than is available on site. If you count all of the indoor seats and you count all of the outdoor seats that are permanent and then the outdoor seats that are temporary, and in a lot of cases, the parking that was lost. So there are definitely code compliance issues. And if the codes were amended in the future, that may or may not continue. So staff's recommendation is to approve the resolution before you tonight. And Mr. Junker and I are available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Markegard. Council, any questions of Mr. Markegard regarding this one? Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. No question, but just, moving forward as we, continue to come out of this pandemic and adapt to the realities of life and how things have changed as a result of it. Of course, we can't do anything about SAC fees, but in terms of code compliance, this might be something to look at in terms of if residents are interested in continuing this kind of thing. And so I guess I do have a question. I'm wondering if there has been any outreach to restaurants or discussion of that to see, in terms of what we can control, if there is any desire to continue that flexibility.
Mr. Markegard?
Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Coulter, we would certainly take direction from the council on that. Again, probably the biggest issue is definitely parking. And we did recently amend parking standards for restaurants. It was not long before the pandemic. So those new standards that are lower have not been fully tested. The change was from a requirement of 1 parking space per 2.5 seats. That was lowered to 1 parking space per 3 seats. That's for indoor seating. And then for outdoor seating, it's 1 space per 5 seats. So that's something we could definitely look at. Given that we've made the change so recently, we would kind of like to have a test period where we try out the new standards and see how they work. We do have a couple of restaurants where we've received a lot of complaints on overflow parking. And at least one of those is a restaurant that does have additional temporary outdoor seating as well. One of the other code requirements that comes into play, at least with one restaurant, is a time limit on tents. Bloomington limits tents to 25 days per year in duration. And we do have one restaurant that utilized a tent and may or may not be interested in that going forward. They would be able to apply for 25 days, but it would take a code amendment beyond 25 days per year.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth some potential outreach to restaurants to see if there is indeed an interest in this. I have kind of heard some varying reports of how it's been helpful and just something to consider as we move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Coulter. Council, any additional questions? Hearing none, Council, I'd look for some direction on this.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Beloga.
I would be happy to move the motion forward.
Please.
I move to approve a resolution continuing the permitted regulation of temporary commercial space creation and expansion as related to the COVID-19 global pandemic.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beloga, second by Councilmember Martin on item 7.6 to approve the resolution continuing the permitted regulation of temporary commercial space. Hearing no further council discussion on this?
Mayor?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Nelson, you fell off my screen. I apologize. Councilmember Nelson.
No, that's not a problem at all. So I just want to say, one, I'll support this. The extension is good. Two, I would love to see it back before us before this expires to take a look at further expansion of it for the simple reason of, one, to support our local businesses, and two, to support those in our community that feel more comfortable eating outside, even though there is a lot of really positive things going on with regard to COVID. I know there are still some people that would like to get outside, have a meal with friends, but maybe for whatever reason, they don't feel comfortable eating inside yet. And I think we should do everything we possibly can to provide flexibility for both the businesses and those individuals in our community to make those decisions, including talking with the Met Council about their fees and things like that. So I would love to see this back before us with a plan to allow this to continue, if at all possible, beyond June 14th.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. I would agree if there would be any possibility to look at in the next couple of weeks expansion or suggestions how to continue this or ways that we could make this either semi-permanent or permanent, not only for the restaurants from the restaurant's point of view, but from a diner's point of view who might not be comfortable going inside and eating in a crowded restaurant. I think that would be helpful, and if we could do that, I think that would be appreciated to get a little more insight as to how that might work. Good?
Yep, Mr. Mayor and council members, we will do that as part of the additional work that we're doing, and that's part of the information that Mr. Markegard and Mr. Junker and others are seeking from the folks who currently have the permits, is what their level of interest is in continuing this. That's obviously a key factor.
Very good. Council, any additional questions? And again, I apologize, Councilmember Nelson. You clicked below my viewable screen here. I apologize for that.
No, it's not a problem, Mayor. I just know Luna de Luna has some outdoor seating right now, and I'd like to go eat there. They got fantastic food. So
very good. We do have a motion and a second on the table to approve this resolution, item 7.6. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Loman,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much for that. We'll look forward to the additional information in the next few weeks here. Moving on to item 8 on our agenda is organizational business, and our first item under organizational business is item 8.1, and that is the 2021 Cultural Arts Support Grants funding recommendations. Leah Hughes, the manager of our Bloomington Center for the Arts, is with us this evening. Good evening, Ms. Hughes, and welcome. Thanks for being here. I thought Ms. Hughes was with us. Leah, you might be on mute.
Leah, you want to try again? Leah, just stop for a second and I'll unmute you. Can you hear us, Leah?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Yay! Can you see me?
We see you, and we had your screen up for a moment, but it has gone away.
So I'm trying to.
Other screen.
Sorry. Chris, can you maybe pull up the PowerPoint? Oh, can you see it now?
No. Give me just a minute. I do have your PowerPoint. So here it comes. Hold on. There you go.
There it is.
So if you just want to
How about now?
hit start from the beginning of your slideshow, and you should be ready to roll.
How's that?
Perfect.
Perfect. You are good to go.
All right. I'm sorry. Thank you for bearing with me there, everyone. So basically, in my presentation, first I'll briefly outline the purpose of the Cultural Arts Support Program, its history, and then second, I'll outline the changes made to the program in 2020. And then last, I'd like to outline the review panelists and their funding recommendations for this year's award. So to give you a brief background of the purpose of the support program, can you guys see the second slide?
It has not advanced to the second slide yet.
I'm sorry. How about that?
There we go. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the purpose of the Cultural Arts Support Program is first and foremost to provide cultural art support opportunities to the Bloomington residents. Basically, we want to see these support dollars impacting our community. Secondly, we want it to bring arts activities to people who may not otherwise have access. With the applicants that we receive, we want to see the different ways that they're trying to mitigate or eliminate barriers to our community members participating in programs. And this can come in a myriad of forms depending on who the arts organization is and what they focus on doing. In addition, we want to make Bloomington a more desirable place to work and live. I think this was really exemplified in the presentation that Sheila Smith gave to us a number of months back through the Minnesota Creative Study. In addition to that, we want city funding to be leveraged to gain additional funding support through any applicant organizations. As a lot of people who work within the grants realm know, often money will bring other money. And so city support is a pretty significant thing for a nonprofit. And so hopefully our applicants are using this partnership with the city of Bloomington to show other funding mechanisms that they know what they're doing, frankly, and are having a great impact, and that rate of investment is there. Next, just to facilitate high quality, cost-effective community programming through partnerships with arts and cultural organizations, it's far more cost-effective for the city of Bloomington to support these organizations who are essentially specialists in what they do, as opposed to the cost of staffing, planning, and implementing these programs through city departments. Next, we'd like to encourage development and expansion of the arts in the community. We like to see partnerships. We like to see new artists, new arts organizations coming in and working within the community and providing those opportunities. And we want to promote arts activities throughout Bloomington facilities and parks. So we want to see programming happening at the Center for the Arts through the Arts and Parks programs and at other facilities. And then lastly, we want to promote collaboration among the various art groups. So we want to see the resident arts groups working with other entities within the community that may or may not be other arts and culture groups. We want to see schools, libraries, and other community assets being used in these programs. The history for the Cultural Arts Program is significant and quite impressive and unique. The city has been allocating art support funds since the 1960s and 70s to a certain extent to some groups. This is impressive because in the research that I've done, I haven't found any other city that has, well, city Bloomington size, that has this long of a history of investing in arts for community benefit. The closest I could come was St. Louis Park. The city of St. Louis Park has an arts and culture grant program similar to what we do in Bloomington. However, there are some nuances. There's multiple partners. It's not just a city-governed program. But other than that, it's really just large cities. So Minneapolis, St. Paul, of course, but other cities that pop up when you do this research is Savannah, Denver, Toronto, so much larger cities than the city of Bloomington. So this particular program and the investment that the city has been making in the arts and our arts and culture groups is quite impressive and quite unique. Between 1994 and 2010, an organization called the Bloomington Fine Arts Council, or BFAC, was the main way that these cultural art funds were distributed to its member organizations. Those member organizations were the 7 resident arts groups that still hold lease agreements with the city of Bloomington today. In 2011, it was decided that this process would no longer be administered through BFAC. These funds would be delivered through an application process. And so at that time, the Cultural Art Support Program was implemented. And as you can see, over the last 20 years, quite a bit has been distributed as far as dollar support go, 1.2 million, and then nearly 400,000 people have been impacted by these programs and the support that's been given to the arts and culture groups who have received funds. Predominantly, the past recipients have been the 7 resident arts groups, again, that still today hold leases with the city of Bloomington to use space in the Center for the Arts, and are the lion's share of the performances and programming that happen in that building. They're also the individual groups that you see often supporting and collaborating outside of the Center for the Arts and other city facilities. Up until 2019, the funding priority was to support or has been given to these 7 resident arts organizations. But at that time, conversations were happening both at the review panel level, the park commission level, and city council to ask questions as to how this program could be made more open to other arts groups and what barriers could be removed in order to make this more accessible to those beyond the 7 resident arts groups. And so in 2020, many conversations happened. These conversations happened between members from the 2019 review panel, select city staff and departments like legal, creative placemaking, racial equity, and community outreach and engagement, and just an overarching assessment of the application and the review process was made. So significant changes were made to the eligibility requirements, and those included fiscal sponsorship opportunities and changing the insurance requirements slightly for the application process. What a fiscal sponsorship is basically a larger 501c3 organization could essentially take a less formal or unincorporated group or organization under their wing, essentially, and provide sponsorship for that group. So essentially they would kind of co-apply for the grants and just basically serve as a mentor for that unincorporated group throughout the process and implementation and delivery of their Cultural Art Support Grant Program. The other thing that was made clear with this fiscal sponsorship is in order to apply with a fiscal sponsor, that agreement and that contract would have to be set before any new group applied for this program. So that had to be, that contract would have to be in place at the time of application. In addition to that, the insurance requirements were changed in the respect that a new applicant does not have to have proof of insurance at the time of application, because that was seen as one of the barriers. Insurance can be quite expensive and prohibitive for some groups. So getting your insurance requirements before the application without knowing that you're going to receive funding was perceived as a barrier. So now that change in requirements is that once a group or organization is awarded funding through the Culture Art Support Grant Program, they would then need to acquire their insurance before they received the Culture Art Support check. So those two were probably the most significant requirement changes to the program for 2020. In addition to that, the application as a whole was just made more robust. Basically, we changed a lot of the questions as a part of the application. We added a significant number of questions to many of the application narrative areas. Those included evaluation and assessment, diversity, equity, and inclusion statistics are now required, and the engagement section was greatly expanded to just garner more information about what the applicants are doing, who they are, mission, vision, values, and just get a better sense of what these organizations are doing. In addition to that, we expanded the word counts for all narrative areas. So basically, these applicants could tell us their story in a more meaningful and robust manner. This was probably the piece that had the most comments this year from the review panel. For the first time, I've been in the arts community for 20 years, and I've been a part of a lot of grant review committees. And for the first time, I actually had people on a review panel say that they enjoyed reading the grant. I can honestly say that's never happened before. And so that was a nice comment to hear after these groups worked so hard to really, really expand the application and the narrative that they were providing to this review panel. So additional changes made to the 2020 CAS program was in marketing. We wanted to more widely promote this opportunity to the public and basically try to just gain more networks who are aware of this opportunity within the city. So there are 3 different ways we did that. First, we posted this opportunity, obviously, on the city's main website and on the Arts Center webpage. There was a tab that was created specifically for that program that contained all of the forms, information, the rubric for criteria and assessment for the applications, and information for who they can contact should they have questions. In addition to that, the Parks and Rec Department has a number of online and social media formats that they use to share this opportunity. So they did Facebook posts, e-news blasts to their subscribers, things like that. The second way it was promoted was through the Community Outreach and Engagement Division contacts. There's a weekly Friday e-newsletter that goes out every week, and it hits a network of about 150 plus Bloomington community contacts. These include just general leaders in the community, BIPOC leaders of organizations in the community, faith-based organizations, charter schools, public school contacts, people of that nature who have really impressive networks and a really good way to get this information disseminated down through different community groups. And then lastly, we promoted this through the Creative Placemaking Network. So Alejandra Palenka has also an e-news blast that goes out to roughly over 1,000 subscribers. And these individuals are predominantly self-loop businesses and stakeholders, in addition to local artists and local arts groups, residents of the city of Bloomington, and just individuals who are generally interested in arts in Bloomington, public art, and creative placemaking. So the networks that were made aware of this opportunity
Leah, excuse me 1 second. We lost your audio. Leah, can you hear me? I believe we've lost the. Can others hear me? Okay. Leah, I'm afraid we lost your audio. So do you want to give it a test now? Is there any... Can you hear me, Leah? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? We'll give her just a moment here to see if she can...
Hey, Chris, this is Melissa. I just got a jabber from Leah, and she's asking for the number to call back in on. I can track that down and send it to her.
I've got it here at my fingertips. Hold on.
Okay, great.
All right, if everybody could just stand by just a moment here. All right, I think we're trying to get the presentation back, and then we'll see if we can reconnect with Leah. Hopefully we won't have to do this too much longer. We'll be able to have everybody in the same place.
Is this where we were, Jamie?
I think that's where we were.
Leah
Chris, can you
Hughes,
hear
is
me?
that you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay! Sorry.
All right, so we can hear you, and I can run your PowerPoint presentation from
Okay.
here.
That would be great. Where did I cut out? Because I just kept going.
You were just starting a review of the members of the review panel.
All right. Okay. So we always try to have a good cross-section of the community. So a couple city staff members, some representation from the community. We always try to have at least one park commissioner, and then the rest of the panel consists of local artists. So this year, Faith Jackson and Jill Murphy were our city staff. Jessica Martinez is an equity specialist BPS, so she was our community representative. Anne Marie Terpstra and Joy Fogg were our park commissioners. And then we had 3 local professional artists on the panel. In addition, many of these individuals are also Bloomington residents. And so they're people who live in the city, who know the city, and who engage in the arts community here in Bloomington. Chris, can you move the slide forward? All right, so what did we learn? So as a panel, the thing that we learned this year is that ultimately this program is still pretty overwhelmingly unknown to the general population. And those that do know about this program know about its history funding the 7 resident arts groups who do have a long and really wonderful history serving the Bloomington community. And the history is also, a lot of partnership with the city of Bloomington as a whole. The other thing is when applying for grants, especially if you're unincorporated or an unformalized group, you can be kind of unfamiliar with the process and it can be very intimidating to you. So many smaller organizations maybe don't know how to navigate just the granting process in general. And then when you throw in fiscal sponsorship and insurance requirements, that can be really intimidating for some folks. So Chris, can you move the slide forward, please? So what we decided we need to do next, first and foremost for this program, we just need to build relationships. We need to, can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we need to build relationships and use the networks and the assets that we have. So our resident arts groups that are long established groups who have huge networks themselves, other arts groups and artists in the community, and the city departments like creative placemaking, community engagement, and outreach. These are all assets that we want to use to just improve the knowledge in the community about this program as a whole. Basically, we need advocates to help us spread the word, and we need more networks. In addition, we'd like to do some workshops to help people understand this process of applying with the city, especially when it comes to fiscal sponsorship and other insurance requirements. And just make this as easy and as transparent a process as we possibly can. In addition to that, we want to try to help form collaborations between nonprofits and other community entities, especially those larger nonprofits that have shown an interest in serving as fiscal sponsors to smaller, less incorporated groups. And then lastly, just make the process, the application submission opportunities as accessible as possible. Some of the conversations said that having application appointments at the city where they can use those city laptop and the network there to make their applications, having individuals or liaisons that can walk them through the process. These were all comments that individuals affiliated with the program felt may be helpful in the future to get unformalized or less formalized groups applying to this funding program. And then Chris, next slide, please. So the action that's requested tonight, the city staff requests that the city council approve the 2021 Cultural Art Support Program recommendations for funding. There were 7 applications that were reviewed. All 7 applications met the criteria. And when reading the applications, the review panel was quite struck by the depth and the just grit that a lot of these arts and culture organizations showed over the last year, especially because COVID was hard. COVID hit them hard, and frankly, they made a lot of changes. They did a lot of soul searching, and they are legitimately trying to serve their populations as best they can. In addition to that, the total recommended or the total request made by applicants is actually slightly less than a total cultural art support grant funding budget. It's smaller by $1,500, so there's not much left over, but because the city can fully fund each of the 7 applicants as they requested, the review panel and the Park Commission have recommended that we do so. So I ask now for the city council to make their request for this, or their approval for this request. And thank you for being patient with all the technical difficulties. I appreciate your time and your patience.
I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness that we finally got this. I got through it. I'm glad to see that. Council, do we have any questions regarding the awards here, or any questions of Ms. Hughes on this? And you may have to just chime up. We're having a little technical issues here as well. If you've got a question, please just kind of wave your hand. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. Leah, just a quick question for you. A resident contacted me and just wondered, and I don't know if you have heard any feedback from any of the organizations who applied for this funding. Given the changes that were made to the process this year, was there any feedback on whether that was a significant burden or a challenge for the organizations to provide that additional information and that kind of thing? Have you gotten any feedback on that?
So there are quarterly meetings held with the resident arts groups every year. And so we had a number of meetings where we were discussing the changes, the potential changes as we were thinking about making them. And then as those changes were made, they were made aware of what was added and why it was added. So it was more work. And I will be honest and say some of them preferred to keep the application the way it was prior. It was much smaller. There was far less information included in that. And I understand that request, but at the same time, there was a pretty compelling reason, and many of them felt that it was appropriate to frankly increase the amount of questions that were asked and increase the amount of data that was collected. And so the resident arts groups and arts groups in general were made aware of the changes. And we did have discussions about how those were going to impact them. but I will tell you, they all did a great job. In the end, we all walked through it together, and it ended up creating a better application process. I would say the bigger concern for the resident arts groups and the arts groups in general who have historically received funding was opening this up to other art groups. I would say that was far more pressing an issue than adding application questions or changing the questions. Because again, this last year has been hard for them. They've been hit hard, and some of them lost significant income because they were hit on all fronts. Not only did they lose their performances, their ticket sales, but they lost their classes, their rehearsal spaces, and frankly, many of them, their funding went down significantly because either funds were redirected for COVID support or they disappeared entirely. And frankly, many of their fundraising efforts were canceled or made far more difficult than they would have been in the past. So I would say that was more of a concern, opening the program up to others at this time, essentially potentially making their grant dollars smaller, as opposed to extending the grant questions or adding grant questions.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson and Councilmember Lohman. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, Mayor, I believe Councilmember Lohman was in front of me. I saw his hand up, but
you go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Didn't want to jump the line here. So I'm gonna take all the good questions. So I just want to follow up with the last comment that funding was down for these organizations, and clearly it's been an absolutely awful year for a number of people and organizations. But I want to clarify that in terms of city funding, we're not down in terms of funding our organizations. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. So the same amount that was allocated in 2019 was allocated to the Cultural Arts Support Grant Program in 2020.
Okay.
So yes, our actual funding budget is not down. It stayed the same.
Okay. And as I went through it for most of the organizations, they were up a little bit or the same or something like that. The only one that I saw that was down was the medalist group. And can you talk to me, because this was based on their request, was there a reason that their request was down this year?
So most of the fluctuations and the requests have to do with their operating budget. So as a rule with the Cultural Arts Support Grant, you can only ask for up to 30% of your overall operating budget. So if an organization experiences a lower budget for the year they're applying, then that means they have to lower their ask. So when I was looking, because I was also comparing the ask from this year from last year, I really truly think COVID impacted some of the asks because they had significantly less income. They had to ask for less Cultural Arts Support Grant support because of that 30% maximum.
All right. And if I understand from our information, they're at 27%. So they're not up to the full 30%. Do you believe that they would benefit from getting to the full 30% and or expanding that slightly on a one-time basis?
I think they would all benefit from reaching a 30%.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't think any of them would probably argue with you about that.
So the only reason I bring it up with them is, like artistry, we've, your recommendation is to fund them with the same number of dollars as we did last year. Angelica Cantina is up just slightly. That is the one group that seems to be down and negatively impacted, at least from city funding, on this. And I know that we have at least a $1,500 amount that wasn't requested, and maybe because of changes in their operations, they wouldn't be able to use it prudently. That would be perfectly acceptable to me, but if there was some, that seems the group that got impacted negatively within this. And so I just wanted to clarify if it was change in operations or they're just maxed out in terms of some rule that we have.
There were a couple of groups. I believe Continental Ballet, I believe their ask was significantly less this year than previous years as well. And so that was a conversation that the review panel had is, can we take that remainder, although it's not large, and somehow distribute that to those who maybe weren't at the percentage or didn't have as high an ask as previous years. And one of the concerns was, how fair is that? So if you pick and choose medalist over someone else, how do you make that kind of a fair distribution without breaking it up to much smaller pieces and then not having as great an impact? So that discussion did happen, but if that's a recommendation that the council makes, we can certainly make that change.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that you had that. I'll turn it over to the mayor to go to the next council member.
And that next council member is Councilmember Lohman. Councilmember Lohman. Well,
thank you, Mayor. I always feel like you got the order just right, so I'm going to go with whatever you recommend. I think it's interesting that on our building that we have the Center for the Arts. And there's all that history there, and so I appreciate your presentation about that. Really, it's you talked about our arts being a part of our past and about our culture, and really it's a window or the foundation for our future. And how important it is. I know, Mayor, how important it is to you, and it's a part of your legacy, kind of as we move forward. So it's my understanding that we did make a number of changes, given that understanding of how arts are going to change in Bloomington. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood it correctly, that you said that these arts organizations were a part of that change. They were at the table having that discussion as we got ready to make those changes. Is my understanding correct with that?
Yes and no. So there were a number of meetings that they were a part of where we discussed what changes we were thinking about making. So some of the biggest changes were adding equity questions, racial equity and diversity questions. So there's a whole section that was added for that. And that was more in response to the city's priority for racial equity, as opposed to any request from the resident arts groups or any arts and culture applicants that we've heard from. As far as other changes to the grant, it was just talked about that, frankly, the application just needed to be made better. It was really difficult to really glean what the mission, vision, and values were based off the old application, because there weren't really enough directed questions. In addition to that, the sections for response were really short. And so they were a part of those conversations, just the need that we want to hear more about what you do. We want to hear more of your story, and we want to give you the room to do that. Obviously, that creates more work when you add more questions and you extend sections. But they were a part of those conversations. They were, their input was taken seriously. Obviously, this was a tough year, so more change was not necessarily something a lot of people wanted to see. But again, it was, for this process, I think, necessary so we could just better understand, especially in a year like this. We know you didn't have performances. We know you didn't have programs. So what did you do instead? And so that was also a big part of the conversation, is this was not an atypical year. So how do we gather information on what flexibility they needed to have and what nimble decisions they needed to make? And frankly, many of them shifted to strategic thinking with their boards, really reflecting on who they are as an organization and what they want to do going forward. Because if you're gonna change things up, now's the time within your organization. And so that was one of the things that really came to light in the application this year, was those questions that were added often were the ones that gathered that particular information, because it wasn't based off ticket sales this year. It wasn't based off of how many kids you had in your classes. It was really, there was a lot more information to gather. So again, the application was more difficult, but I think it was a benefit in the end, because we got far more information this round than we would have had we left it the way it was.
So let me ask this. I know my colleague asked this before, but I just want to be clear about this, because I also had a question too that came to me. Any of those changes that were made to the application process into this structure, did it have any economic barriers to, in your opinion, to these folks being able to kind of continue doing their arts? I know as you've already just mentioned, did you see any of that type of thing? Was there any comments around that from your organization saying, these challenges are just going to make this a real problem?
I did not hear any comments about there being economic barriers to changing the application process. No.
Well, thank you. And I know that the changes that we have suggested and the things that we've put forward are really going to set up and structure our organizations to be able to compete in the marketplace going forward. There are significant demographic changes that the city is trying to prepare ourselves to be able to do and to be first in the line to be able to do that. So I appreciate both you and the staff's ability to be able to do that as we kind of move forward. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Council, additional questions? Now, one word that you used, Ms. Hughes, that I wrote down, you talked about the grit of the organizations over the past year, and I think that is about a perfect word for it, because once the pandemic set in and all of the stages and performance halls went dark, it was obviously impactful in ways that I don't think impacted. Eventually, restaurants and bars were able to come back. Retail obviously was able to come back, but we have not seen performing arts in 15 months now. And it's
right.
I know that grit necessary to fight through this and to get to the other side of this pandemic is a key. And I'm so glad to see that our 7 residence arts organizations did have that grit to get to the other side, because at the other side, I think they're going to be much stronger. They're going to be in a changed landscape in terms of arts competition across the Twin Cities metropolitan area, and I think they're going to be in a good place. And so I tip my hat to them. I tip my hat to you folks for your guidance and your leadership and your work with them, but certainly to them and their boards of directors and all of the people who belong to those organizations for sticking it out over an incredibly difficult year in the arts world. So hats off to them. I would also add, I also heard from at least a couple of different groups that it was a bit more difficult to fill out this year's application, which I understand, and frankly, I don't have a problem with the additional information. If it helps put together a better grant program, I think it's definitely worthwhile and definitely worth doing. And also heard concerns that that ultimately there may be more than 7 arts organizations that receive grant funding, and the obvious concern of that pie being cut into smaller slices. And definitely hear that concern, especially among organizations that have received a goodly portion of funding from the city for a number of years. But I would say that I do think it's important that we look outward to try and find additional arts organizations to not compete with, but to complement our existing arts organizations. And frankly, I agree that the way the pie is now, it would be sliced much smaller. So I think we need to look for ways to grow that pie. If we get an additional 5 or 6 or however many new arts organizations that can serve communities, that can do an outstanding job, can add to the arts vitality here in the city of Bloomington, I think it's incumbent upon this council to look for ways to increase the size of that pie and to make sure that they can succeed as well. So, my 2 cents there.
Well put. Thank you.
Council, any additional questions, comments, concerns on this? Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just quickly along the lines that you said, I'm just wondering, and I don't need an answer tonight, but maybe in future years, is there a way we can better leverage the money we put into this to draw in additional money for these organizations or new organizations? Is there a way to structure these as matching grants or anything of that nature that might help them draw in more money that isn't just taxpayer supported? So I think, Mayor, I think you were spot on in what you were saying there, and just wanted to echo that.
I think that's a good idea. It would be a good approach, and something I'm sure, now that you brought it up, staff will look into if they haven't already. So thank you for that, Councilmember. If there's not anything additional, Council, I would look for action on this.
I would move to approve the recommendation of staff. I don't have the motion exactly in front of me, sorry.
My guess is you're trying to say you to approve the 2021 Cultural Arts Support Program recommendations for funding as outlined in the staff report.
That's exactly what I meant to say.
That's what I figured that was the case.
Beloga,
Councilmember Nelson with a motion, second by Councilmember Beloga to approve the 2021 Cultural Arts Support Program recommended for funding as outlined in the staff report. Hearing no further discussion on this, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Busse?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Leah, thank you very much, and thank you for your work during this past year. Thank you for the grit that you have shown as well, and everybody here at the Center for the Arts for getting through. Really looking forward to the lights being back on here and really filling this building up again with the arts, because that's what it was meant for, and that's when it is just most vibrant. And so looking forward to that. So thank you so very much.
Thank you all.
We will move on to item 8.2, which is our City Council policy and issue update. Mr. Verbrugge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I have no additional items for the council this evening.
Council, anything for item 8.2, the council policy and issue update? Councilmember Martin.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I guess a comment, but a quick question first. And forgive me, you may have addressed this at the top. Do we know, was co-ed coordinating any flag placement activities out at Bloomington Cemetery again this year? I think it was around this weekend last time around in 2020.
Mr. Mayor and council members, Councilmember Martin, I have the request for that information into staff, and I'll let you know tomorrow morning. I have not received any additional information tonight.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And I'll also just mention off to the side, because I had gotten a notification about it. I know there's a group that does flags out at Fort Snelling. They place about 200,000 American flags out, and especially because of COVID, we're a little more strapped for volunteers. It's a program I very much appreciate and have some experience with. And I guess depending, especially on what's going involved here in Bloomington, I encourage folks to help out with that. It was really powerful last year when I was there. And otherwise, I know flagsforportsnelling.com, you can sign up to volunteer for that effort as well. Just a really cool opportunity to say thanks on what should be a pretty good weather day to folks who sacrifice for the country. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. Anything else, Council? Hearing none, we will move on to item 8.3, which is a resolution to go into closed session to discuss labor relations strategy. As I mentioned earlier, the City Council's public bodies in the state of Minnesota do have the option to move into closed session for a very limited number of issues. I believe it's for something like this, labor negotiations, it's for performance evaluation, and a handful of other things that I'm sure Ms. Mandershak could fill me in on. But this is what we will be doing this evening, is moving into closed session to discuss our labor relations strategy. As I mentioned, we will come back into open session to adjourn the meeting, but when we do that, there will be no further council business that will take place once we come back into open session. So, council, what I would look for is a motion to accept our resolution to go into closed session. Ms. Mandershak, did I do that all correctly?
Mayor members, yes. Just a simple approval of the resolution. All of the relevant details are included in that resolution.
Very good. Council, looking for a motion on the resolution.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make that motion. Councilmember Lohman.
Second, Beloga.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lohman, a second by Councilmember Beloga to accept the resolution to go into closed session to discuss labor relations strategy. No further council discussion. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Busse?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Council, you should have received a new meeting invitation for the closed session. I believe we will leave open. Is that how it works? We leave open the current WebEx session. So leave open your current WebEx session, and we will come back into that, but also go into the closed session right now. Does that make sense?
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Wilson, correct me on everything I
Actually,
said wrong.
Ms. Christensen is going to remain in this meeting to keep it active. Everyone else should actually leave this meeting
My
so that
apologies.
you're not into it once.
Everybody leave this meeting is what I meant to say.
You're lucky.
We are back from our closed session. Just want to let everybody know we had a good discussion. No final decisions were made, but we had a very good closed session and a good discussion among council members. We are now back in open session, and the only item left is to accept a motion to adjourn this evening.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Coulter,
Aye.
Lohman,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned for this evening. Thank you all very much. Thanks for the discussion. Good one.
Night all.
Thanks.
Night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Night, folks.